Y'all, Wallaru is right around the corner, and that means it's time to talk about the future of Wizard101's pity system. If you guys don't know what a pity system is, basically, it's something that Wizard101 adds so that let's say that you're farming for one very specific drop. After a certain amount of time, you're basically guaranteed to get it. The most prominent example of this is with Aeon gear. Let's say that you really want the balanced Aeon robe, but the final boss just isn't dropping it. Are you completely out of luck? No. Basically, the idea is you'll start accumulating masterpiece capes, which is a lower tier version of Aeon robes, and then when you get 9 of them and you also get enough reagents from farming and you get some ground loot, you can make the gear. Now, why did I want to talk about the future of Wiz's pity system is because one, they've done a lot of things recently that gives me hope, but also because of how awful, in my opinion, my experience with the Novus pity system was, I wanted to give my feedback before they even implement a pity system in Wallaru. I've probably made multiple videos of how bad Novus's pity system is at this point, but I just wanted to talk about the details that I think are very, very easy fixes, even if they keep a lot of the things that they did with Novus the same. One very, very prominent issue with the Novus system that they use. There are bosses that unfortunately dilute drops severely. I think the best example of this, and this is something that I really, really hope they do not do in Wallaru, the best example of this is a dueling space. If you guys have done this boss, it is very, very annoying to farm. It drops rings and amulets. And you might be wondering, yo, like, it's just rings and amulets. What could possibly go wrong? Well, the problem with this dungeon is that you have to do 2 minion fights, and you also have to do a boss that has a weird mechanic where he gets extra lives. And you could do all of that to not even get a lower tier version of a ring to craft the ring that you want. You could just get the lower tier version of an amulet, which is borderline useless. That's kind of a severe issue in my opinion. Now, obviously, this also occurs in the final boss. If you guys don't know, final boss, it drops hats, wands, and robes. But unlike the dueling space, this boss actually gives you many, many drops. I believe you get guaranteed 2 drops every time. I don't think you're guaranteed 2 drops in this. And also, one of the drops, the amulet, is borderline useless. I think what they should do is, if they're gonna make a pity system where you can work your way up to the drop that you want, like in Novus, in Wallaru, I think they should split rings, athemes, amulets, and wands amongst a bunch of bosses. As in, you know which boss you have to farm for 1 piece of gear, not 2, not like 3. If they really need to add multiple drops onto a boss, I think a final boss that has slightly more generous drop rates for being difficult, like what we have right now in Novus, that's not that bad. Maybe the final boss dropping like maybe the hat and the robe. In Wallaru, I don't want to be trying to get 9 pieces of a tier 2 ring, and every single time I farm a super tedious boss to get it, I get something to craft something that I don't want. I think that's a really, really bad concept. And I think, honestly, the grind is just so artificially high just off of that alone. So giving bosses multiple things that they drop, I think that's a bad idea. Make more unique bosses, make more, you know, avenues to get the gear that you want, and then you have a more functional pity system than what we have in Novus. Now, let's talk about a class of drops that don't even have a pity system in Novus right now. If you're anything like me, you like the idea of dual schooling. I know this is controversial. Some people hate dual schooling, but I like it. In PvP, I find it really, really cool that as a adept, I can, you know, farm these pins, and by farming, you know, the pierce pins and the damage pins and all that, I can make a really, really cool double damage setup for both Death and Storm. But in order to get these specific drops, I have to go through tons and tons of extremely useless drops. If y'all don't know, right, spirit schools can basically dual school into elemental schools much more easily than their fellow spirit school. That means that Death can more easily dual school into Ice, Fire, and Storm than it can dual school into Myth and Life. And this is done super, super purposefully, right? When you look at the athemes and rings and wands that you can craft in the Aeon Gear Crafter, what you'll notice is, like the athemes for Death, they give Storm damage, they give Fire damage, and they give Ice damage. But you won't find a Death athame that gives secondary damage to Life or Myth or even Balance. What that means is, in my opinion, drop tables that give you extremely high rates of life pins, myth pins, balance pins on a Death, I feel like that's extremely stupid. These are clearly less useful drops. They don't even need to add a pity system for pins, in my opinion. They just need to make the drops that you can actually use more easily, that the game pushes on you. They need to make those a lot more common than the stupid one, the stupid drop. I also think there should be a way to transmutate certain pins into other pins that you need once you get enough of them. I have like literally I have 6 balance punishing pins maxed out, but there's no Athame or ring or wand that gives balance damage for that. So these are borderline useless. It would be really, really cool after farming all of these extremely, like, you know, hard to farm jewels. It'd be cool if I could make these into something better that I could actually use, like a fire pin, like an ice pit. Without that, you run into the exact same issue that the pity system in Novus aim to solve. You could be farming a boss that has a punishing pin in their drop table and literally never get it, right? You could just keep getting unlucky. You could keep getting one of 5 other schools that you don't want the pin for. That's extremely tilting. I have still not finished farming max pins on every wizard, and Wallaru's about to come out. If pins are gonna be like a bigger part of the game, and they're gonna also be adding jewels with this new jewel audit, there needs to be a way to somewhat control the outcome of your farming when it comes to that realm of drops. If they don't do that, Wallaru will be literally too grindy. It's going to be grindier than Novus, and I'm not convinced that without changing some elements of what they've done in Novus, if they don't learn from all their mistakes, I'm not convinced it'll be as enjoyable as it could be. Now, you might have heard earlier in the video, I talked about how they've done recent things to the pity system that I've honestly found really, really enjoyable. The most recent pity system that they've added is a breath of fresh air, man. And honestly, I don't know what it took for them to do this, but please keep doing this. I brought this up in a recent video, but if you know, have gold keys and you farm the new, like, Chrysalis gold key boss and you want Burrower gear, every single boss fight drops like 4 to 5 spore caps, and you can craft anything you want with this gear crafter that they have stationed right next to this, like, dungeon for spore caps. The hat and the boots, which is what, honestly, anyone should be farming this for, maybe the robe, whatever, they're all 17 spore caps. That means that after, like, 12 runs of this, you're basically guaranteed a full set of Burrower gear for the school of your choosing. The raids now do this too, the Crying Sky raid. Every time you beat Hoon Hao, the final boss, you get Shabalba shards. And if you get enough of these, you can control the way you get the gear that you want from the raid. You can craft whatever you want, and you can transmutate that piece into whatever else you want. Now, obviously, this is a gold key boss and a raid we're talking about, right? I assume that the reasoning for their pity system being so, like, you know, I don't know, not like mind-numbingly awful. I think the reason for that is because they're supposed to be harder. They're advanced combat. But why not, for every single main world, add a version of a boss, maybe the final boss if you want, that is harder, that drops reagents like this, so that, you know, you can put in extra time and maybe control the gear that you get even more than the, you know, the gear-based crafting pity system that they had in Novus. That's what I think they should really consider, right? I mean, make more bosses, you know, don't make the drop tables diluted, but also add another version of maybe the final boss that's harder, that drops reagents that you can use to craft specific pieces of gear that you want, rather than get like 9 pieces of tier 2 gear, because even that feels super, super grindy to me. At the end of the day, let's be honest, they're gonna just release a pack so that you can get this gear without doing anything anyways. So, you know, in the meantime, between when they release the Wallaru World Pack or the Wallaru Explorers Pack, before they do that, it would be nice for the people that don't want to wait until the pack or don't want to spend money on the pack. It'd be nice if they had access to maybe difficult challenges that give them access to an even better pity system than the one that they experienced in Novus. I think that would be very, very ideal, and it would really be rewarding for players that would like more challenging fights and also better drops. And honestly, it would be optional, right? If you want an easier fight for a more, like, you know, casual, like, you know, build your way up to the drop type of experience, that should be available like it already is. That's what I think Wiz should do. There's a lot of things that I think Novus did wrong, and a lot of things that they've done with pity systems that have gone right recently. So why not learn from the past and implement what you've done in the present? That's my 2 cents. I'm extremely excited about Wallaru. I hope it's not super grindy. I hope the story is fire. I hope everything about that is awesome. But let me know what you guys think. What was your experience with the pity system in Novus, and how do you guys think they should change it for Wallaru? I'm sure they're up to their knees in Wallaru development right now, so this is probably the best time to give them feedback anyways. I look forward to reading y'all's comments. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Leave us a review, and if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome. See y'all soon, and yeah.